Hey, folks. This is Jesse Cope back with another episode of the American Soul Podcast. Hope y'all are doing well, wherever y'all are, and whatever y'all are up to today. I'm going to take one of our little walks. I'm actually going to walk out here and lock up the birds for the evening. Hopefully they won't fly down on top of my head. Give y'all something to laugh about anyway, though. As always, for those of y'all that continue to give me some of your time, I'm grateful for that. And for those of y'all that continue to share the podcast, I appreciate that. I'm very grateful and humbled by that. Now, Tom has decided that he doesn't want to come down tonight. And now he's not real impressed with me, and that's okay. We'll see if he'll go inside. So, I don't very often, but every once in a while on the podcast, what we do, well, let me back up. One of the things that I do harp on a lot in the podcast is culture and education. Because no matter what we do at the ballot box, folks, if we don't fix the issues that we've got at home and in the school, in the classroom, ballot box isn't going to matter much. And this goes back to quotes that we talk about quite often. Lock doesn't. There we go. I'm real interested in locking tonight. Hopefully that's a little bit entertaining for y'all at least. We got them all up now. We'll go for our walk. So, John Adams, that quote we use so often here, that our Constitution, our republic, our government was only made for a moral and religious people that follow the teachings of Christ, right? And we've got a number of them we use. That's just the one that I go to often. Another one that popped in my head tonight when I was getting ready to do this podcast was a quote I believe Patrick Henry used, and also President Grant, which is the proverb that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And translation there, for those of us that are a little bit, that need the King James explained a little bit, is, when we have a great people, things go well for the country. That doesn't mean that everybody's life is wonderful. And that certainly doesn't mean that we don't get attacked from outside and inside. But it certainly goes better than when we choose to sin. And that's really what we see today, folks. You can look across. We talk about it often, right? We have rejected God's teachings on sanctity of life. We've rejected them on sanctity of marriage. We've kicked him out of our institutions, from education all the way to public policy, back down to individual organizations like the Boy Scouts. And even this year, you started to see some of the bigotry and the racism of the left creep into an organization like Salvation Army. So we've done a pretty good job at embracing sin. And one of the ways that we have really done it is in culture. Education too. I would really argue education first. We're pushing it there, and it's kind of a captive audience, right? Because especially in public education, the kids, for most folks, the majority of Americans, we at least don't feel like we have the means to take our kids out of public education. And we can make the arguments about whether that's really true or not, but that's how most people feel. And so that probably is worse, and that's why we hit it so often. But culture is another huge one, folks. And there was a quote by Reagan that we used recently within the last month or so on the podcast. And he was talking about how it was that's what it was, his farewell address in '89. And he was talking about how culture used to support the founding faith and principles of of the country. And he said really up to the 60s. I would make the argument that it went a little bit farther than that, but perhaps not. Um, it certainly started to deteriorate pretty soon after that at best. And that has such a dramatic effect, folks, because not only now are we, with our children, which is the future of our country, in education, are we pushing these evil values like abortion, like the LGBTQ movement, like illegal immigration. We're supporting that via education. Revisionist history, feminism, bigotry via critical race theory and identity politics. And so we get that at school, our kids are getting that at school, and we've got to try and deprogram them when we get back home. And then when we do get them home, popular culture, whether it's music or movies or books, they reinforce those evil values even more. So it's just a constant battle. One of the examples that my wife and I have seen with our girls is a series that was really popular, I think, back maybe early 80s, called Babysitter's Club, right? Some of y'all that listen are going to be familiar with that. I was not as a kid, but I'm sure many of y'all were. And they've redone the series. They've redone it a couple times. But our girls got into one of the most recent revisions, and Katie and I just started thumbing through it. And they have taken it and revised it to really support a lot of these issues. Certainly, one of the things that we noticed is the broken families are so prevalent now in the series, and they didn't used to be. And I know there's a lot of people that come from broken families, folks, and through no fault. Well, let me back up. I know that we have a lot of broken families, but we have almost gotten to the point where we promote that as normal and say, well, this is just the way things are. You know, no fault divorce has opened wide a door that should never have been opened. And you see it in others. That was a simple case. You can see it on TV channels. I'm sure many of y'all that have kids, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, they've absolutely started to promote the LGBTQ network. And some of the older movies, you know, PG-13 maybe, you've started to see some positive takes on abortion. And really you have for quite a while. So this is nothing new for most of y'all. But, and I'm kind of rambling here, which I apologize for. My point is, every so often I like to bring a few things from culture that are positive. And it's been quite a while since we've done this. And so some of these are going to be repeats. Y'all forgive me if you've been listening to the podcast. And one of them I wanted to start with is called Superbook. And it's it's an animated, it's a cartoon. And there have been a couple revisions of it. There was one, I think, back in the 70s or 80s. And there's one now. And it's not perfect, folks, by any means. But it's really good. The kids find it entertaining. And it goes through Bible stories. And it's got two young kids that get sucked into Bible stories. We got a cat that's decided to come out and join us. And they go through and they live through these Bible stories and interact with the people. And it's a great basis. It's something other than what kids are offered on TikTok and Snapchat and Netflix or Hulu or Nickelodeon or Disney, whatever it is, right? So if you have young kids, I would say that they'll probably find it entertaining up through middle school. I find it entertaining still, but that may be more a comment about the level of my maturity than anything else. Or if you've got grandkids, it's great, phenomenal. And they've got 3 or 4 different seasons. I think it's something like 12, 13, 14 episodes a season. And they go through a lot of the Bible stories, and they really reinforce the teachings of Jesus Christ, which our nation was founded on, which we talk about constantly. Going to go ahead and say it again. Wilson, we were born a Christian nation. President Truman, in his letter to Pope Pius, we are a Christian nation, and a number of others. So it's I think, a great resource. Another one that we have started to dig into, actually we've been digging into it for a few months now, just kind of reading off and on, is the Little House on the Prairie series by Wilder. And it's not overtly Christian, so some of y'all may find that appealing, but it absolutely reinforces Christian principles, the principles our country was founded on: hard work, self-responsibility, taking responsibility for one's own actions. The fact that there's a great lesson in a couple of the books that life isn't always fair, and you have to deal with that. Just some really and it kind of, in a way, gets you back to nature a little bit. At least it feels that way, kind of pushes you that way. Our kids have found it real entertaining. So I think it's just a good series, folks, and it does not push a lot of just these evil values that we see pushed today by culture. So those are kind of a couple for kids, and there's a number of others we'll talk about from time to time. One, if you're looking for adult, I'm not great on TV and movies. I did find a channel, folks, for those of y'all that are looking for something online, called Pure Flix. Kevin Sorbo is a big figure there. And there's quite a few movies that do a real good job of promoting Christian values, the values of our country. So if you get a chance, that's another one to look at. Another one, and this is more of an adult book series, is the Mitford series by Jan Karon. If you're familiar with it, if you're not, it follows a priest and kind of small town life. It was extremely popular, I think, in the 90s, but it does a phenomenal job of really exemplifying in the life and interactions of this little village Christian principles. One of the latest books that I've been rereading, really focuses on sanctity of marriage and the importance. And it's not really even overtly done. It's just in the book. It just is a common theme throughout the book. It just popped into my head, and I'm sure that some of y'all were not huge Rush Limbaugh fans, and some of y'all were, and that's fine. But as always, I say on here, you're never going to find somebody that you agree with 100% of the time. And so you got to take the good, and kind of, as my old pastor used to say, you take the good stuff and you leave all of the bad stuff from people. And he didn't mean that in kind of a using up people way. He meant it simply as when you come across something that somebody says that's true, you take that, you accept it, regardless of if you are a big fan of the person or not. And when you come across stuff that is not true or that they're doing that's not right, then you kind of push that to the side. Limbaugh said it a little differently. He made the comment once, years and years ago, that people were tired of having to defend what shouldn't have to be defended. And I bet he said it a little more cleverly than that, but that's the way I remember it right now. And that's true. We used to just look at marriage and automatically, oh, mom and dad, man and a woman. And now that's something that we're forced to defend. And so when you see it in these books like this Mitford series, and it's just presented as this is the way life is supposed to be, it's pretty refreshing. And again, the series isn't perfect. Y'all are going to be able to read it and find stuff that you don't like, and that's great. Just, I guess, kind of take the good with the bad. So the point of all this, my rambling, folks, is really that if we're really going to see a change in our country, we've got to start to make some changes at home. And that really has to, it's not going to be painless for a lot of us because let's face it, most of us deep down, we're really pretty selfish individuals. We want to do what we want to do when we want to do it. And that's just not really, it's not an option anymore. We've done that for decades. And we're right up against the wall pretty much now, folks. It's as I say often, it's hard to see how we're going to avoid a fight unless we're just going to willingly go down the road to USSR Russia or Soviet Union, excuse me, which ironically is in the news right now. And one of these changes, folks, has to be what we take in. And this goes back to we are a Christian nation, and one of the principles, again, out of Proverbs is you have to guard your heart. For everything we do, it's the wellspring of life. Everything we do comes out of the heart. And so everything we take in, folks, music, TV, books that we read, magazines, everything on our phone, Lord knows, all of that stuff becomes part of us, becomes part of our character. And it's really foolish on our part to assume that we could watch sex on TV outside of a marriage, or maybe even in a marriage portrayed there, watch naked people on a screen, listen to lyrics and music that talk explicitly about immoral things. The same thing with books, just across the board, folks. And I don't feel like I really need to get explicit on this. One of the things C.S. Lewis said in kids' books is he said, you need to talk to kids about the bad things in life, but you don't have to be gruesome in detail about it. And if you've ever read much of Narnia, you know that there's absolutely scenes where people are killed there, but he doesn't focus on it the way that so many forms of entertainment do today. And so I'm kind of going to leave it there. But just realize if you don't, folks, everything that we take in becomes part of us. And it affects how we view the world and even more importantly, how we act. And so if we're going to change the home, we're really going to have to change what we spend our time on, how we spend our time. And if we're not, then we should expect to see the same decline that we've been seeing decade after decade. And this is true again in education. It's really true with our kids, folks, because as they're growing up, we're really putting that in to their mind. And we have to stop that somehow, both in education and in culture. So at any rate, hopefully this helped a little bit, gave you at least a few things that you could go to and look at. And it was just nice being able to have a conversation with all. And I have my littlest coming to talk to me. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I'll be right there. And that's my cue, folks, to go inside. I sure do appreciate y'all joining me. God bless y'all. God bless your families. God bless America. And we will talk to y'all again real soon. Looking forward to it.